Hi and welcome back to Full Bloom Block of the Month. Now we're going to work on block number 3. And we're going to go through the pattern step by step. So the first thing we're going to do is find the large pattern pieces in the large fold out in the pattern. And we're going to do our tracing. So here's our tracing. So you're going to trace it exactly like it is onto the vellum or tracing paper. I happen to like vellum, it's my favorite. Trace exactly everything that's here. So if there's numbers or letters, just transfer all that information to your pattern piece. And the next thing we're going to do is trace all of these individually as separate pieces. And that's what I did here. So here's the flower in all its separate pieces, the base, the petals, and here are the small flowers that needed to be traced and whatever centers needed. So that's everything traced for block number 3. I want to give you a little bit more insight into the pattern, the large pattern pieces. I know we're on block number 3, but this is where it starts. The blocks start to get a little bit more complicated. So let's look down at the pattern. And on this sheet, there are petals behind the large flower, and then there are shading pieces on top. There's two things that we did with the numbering system. We tried to keep the fabrics to be consistent, so with the numbering system and with the way that we shaded it. So one of the fabrics is listed in numbers, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So some of them are petals and some of them are shading, but the numbering system stayed consistent and so did the way that we shaded it with this grid. The second fabric that we used was this dot, and that's shown as an alphabet. So A, B, and C. So those are the only pieces that we'd use from that particular fabric. So we wanted to try to keep that consistent with all of the patterns that we're using for the rest of the blocks. There are going to be some blocks coming up that there are a lot of different numbering and shading systems, but just know that we kept it consistent, or we did our best to keep it consistent with numbering and shading, so that you know exactly when you cut the pieces out of your freezer paper, you know that they go with that fabric. So we're going to go through the pattern again step by step. So page 9 is block number 3. And at the top you're going to see where we listed what we chose as our fabric colors for this block. And in this corner down here, it shows you the numbers that Island Batik assigned to the different fabrics. And then remember in the parentheses where it shows you that you got this fabric in block 2, and block 2, and block 1. So if you're doing this quilt as a block of the month from a shop, this is all you're going to get this month. You're going to get one fat quarter and a 1 yard piece for the background, because you already had the other fabrics that were needed for this. And I went ahead and marked them so I knew when I was going to need this fabric again. So each time I use a fabric, if I'm going to repeat it, I'll just give myself a note that I need this again in blocks 3 and 6, 3 and 6, 2, 3, and 6. And that information is all written here on each of the pattern pages, where the fabric will be used again. So that's what I wrote on these little stickers. And clearly that says 7 and not 6, but that's how it goes when you're filming. So you always have that information for you. And I just, again, put the stickers on there so I know I can keep track of it when I go to block number 4 and all the blocks after this. So we have everything traced and ready to go. So let's walk through the pattern step by step. Here you see I cut out all of the pieces from the background. The large square, the strip, the 4.5 and the 8.5 inch squares. I have all these ironed onto my pieces. For this yellow print, remember we're going to use this again in block number 6. So I really tried to get these as close as I could so I can have a big enough piece to use for the next time I need this fabric. The same goes for this. I don't know how much fabric I'm going to need for those other blocks, so I really just try to keep everything up close and personal to each other. Here's my shading. And then this I'm going to need one more time, so I tried to keep these up as close as I could to the top. And then the base. So we're going to cut all of these pieces out, and we're going to get ready to start assembling this block. So remember way back when in block number 1, where we went through all the step-by-step instructions for edge coloring applique? We're going to do just a little bit refresher course on that now. So let's look down at this, at my flower, and notice the dotted lines again, so we know that these pieces go behind the larger flower. So I'm going to fit those in to match them up with my tracing paper drawing. Because they're behind the big flower, the petals have to go on first. So I'm just going to put all the petals in, and then I'm going to remove the vellum and then do my stitching. Let's not be confused. When I say stitch, I actually mean that you're supposed to be stitching. But I'm making a video and I'm getting through this so that you know what the steps are for each part of making a flower. So when I say stitch and you don't see any stitching, you just know that you're supposed to be stitching. So now that I've put these down and stitched them, I'm going to add the large flower piece next. So under the vellum, slip this under, and then you can just get it in the right position. Now we're going to glue this down. Whew, it's really exhausting when you glue that fast. Well, with a little practice, you'll be able to go as fast as I can. So I'm just pulling off the freezer paper and we're ready to do the next layer. Alright, so next we add the shadow pieces that give the definition to the petals when the whole thing gets quilted and stitched. Alright, so as you can see, I added the stem and the stem shadow. Now this block is complete. So that's the end of block 3. See you back here for block 4 to play some more.